Good evening and welcome back to Kyle Hooten Live, presented by Alpha News. Today we're joined by Representative Erik Mortensen of District 55A. He's been a pivotal voice for Republicans here in Minnesota, and we're very glad to have him with us tonight. Erik, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm kind of excited to see what we're going to cover here, and it's been a long legislative session, so I'm assuming we're going to kind of recap where we've been and where we're probably going to go.
Yeah, and why we're going there, because there's a lot to talk about here. So right off the bat, what's been your impression of the legislative session so far as we're in, the final couple yards? What points do you really want to ram home? What are you left feeling?
Yeah, well, as I reflect on the last 4 or 5 months, the things that really stick with me are how hard we fought to end the peacetime emergency and how frustrating it was that 6 Democrats have voted repeatedly all of last year to end the peacetime emergency. They all flip-flopped on their voters, and they've been voting in lockstep with leadership. And that kind of frames up the bigger issue that I see at the Capitol, is how leadership demands how their members behave. And if those members don't behave in the way their leaders tell them to, there's consequences. And I think people need to be aware of that. And as I've been editing most of my videos with, you need to be politically feared if you're going to be politically heard and respected, because that's what their leaders do. The leaders, they leverage fear to dictate the behavior of their members. And I think more and more Minnesotans need to learn from that blueprint and deploy the same recipe. The other things, I'm a freshman. I just got elected in November. And I've been struck with how phony the floor sessions are. The Democrats forced this 24-hour rule, which, as I understand it, is sometimes it's there, sometimes they don't have it. And I can see how the debate would be so much more real if you didn't have to alert the majority party what you plan on doing 24 hours in advance, because then you can tell that they're literally scripting out what's going to happen during the floor session. And I mean literally scripting. Like, you can see the people speaking in the Zoom calls and they're reading left to right, and they can't even make it look like it's sincere. It's like this, it's like a play.
Just to clarify, this 24-hour rule, what exactly does that entail?
Well, so 24 hours in advance of a floor session, you need to alert the speaker if you plan on bringing any amendments to any bills. You need to drop any bills in the hopper 24 hours in advance. And the only thing you can really do that would be like in real time and real organic would be you can make some motions the same day, but still they know what's happening in advance. So actually pulling moves on the floor in real time, it's few and far between. I've done a couple. In fact, one of them, I made the Democrats vote on their tax conformity bill, and they voted against it, even though they just were praising their own bill. So I really caught them off guard with that one. But it's literally like a play, and they just go through their scripts, and the outcome is predetermined. And I think it's important for people to know that, because I think the casual observer tunes into these live broadcasts of floor session, and it looks like it's high drama and it looks like it's organic, but it is all scripted in advance. And imagine getting an invite to a Zoom meeting like this that says it's going to be 15 hours long, and the outcome of that meeting is already predetermined. I mean, it is like banging your head on the wall. Painful.
Wait, you're telling me you didn't get the script for this Zoom call? I thought you
right. Yeah, and so that has really struck me, because I'm not a scripted kind of a guy, and I was railing on them early on, saying, how come you guys are literally scripted here? And then now that months have gone by, it's become obvious that's what they do. And then the other highlight, I think, is the Never Again bill I put together. Almost 2 months ago, we dropped that bill, and there's no other legislation like it at the Capitol. But there's a bunch of fake bills that they've been parading around as if they're going to fix the emergency powers, but they just don't. I mean, the closest bill that the establishment Republicans are pushing is this House File 101, and it's a horrible bill. I can't believe Republicans are pushing it. But right up from Kurt Dowd down to, Eric Lucero even, are signed onto this bill and pushing it. And it literally codifies in our state constitution. It gives the governor forever unilateral emergency powers. And the only thing it really does is it says, well, both parties both houses need to approve an extension. And to me, it's like, well, a lot of people have been saying this, what the governor is doing is unconstitutional. And their answer, the establishment Republicans, is make it constitutional. And it's just crazy to me. And when I forced a vote on that, a roll call vote on the Never Again bill, we didn't get any establishment Republicans to even raise their hand to support getting a roll call vote. So when we've got 2 out of the 3 governor candidates, the Republicans, signing pledges saying they would make the Never Again bill their first priority if they get elected. And to Scott Jensen's credit, he's at least verbalized it. He just won't sign the pledge. So essentially all the Republican governor candidates are saying that's the number 1 bill, but the establishment Republicans refuse to get behind it. And it's so transparently obvious about power and control to be sort of concentrated behind leadership that I don't know how anybody could see it as anything other than that at this point. And I've tried to make that point. I've got video footage of them refusing to raise their hands. And so I've been really trying to highlight that we have a leadership issue in St. Paul, much like in DC with, Liz Cheney today getting kicked out of leadership. So we need to start holding these people accountable for what they promised they would do at the Capitol.
Absolutely. For those of us who are just tuning in, we're live right now with Representative Erik Mortensen of District 55A discussing the current state of affairs in St. Paul in the legislature. Could you clarify for us, who are the power brokers? When you have these people that are literally reading from scripts, I assume somebody is coordinating that effort. Where are the marching orders coming from?
Well, so on the Democrat side, I'm not in their caucus, obviously, but I have to imagine it's the majority leader, Ryan Winkler, and it's got to be Melissa Hortman. And then outside of that, I don't really know their structure. I think, as I understand it, Representative Jamie Becker-Finn has some influence over there. So I don't know for sure, but clearly it is scripted because even some of their members will tell some people of our members that, oh, here's what's going to happen on this amendment. It's going to get ruled out of order and it's going to come up by, it always, who always seems to be it is Representative Moran. She always seems to be the one on the Democrat side saying, oh, this is out of order, her and Pinto. And they're reading from a script. It's obvious that Moran is reading from a script. And the speaker just instantaneously says, yeah, I agree, that's out of order. And so they've obviously already looked at all this stuff. And the things that they're calling out of order now, you can tell they're just abusing the rules because it's clearly germane. So they'll often say, it's not germane to the bill, this amendment, so we're going to rule it out of order. And it's become obvious now that that is just their tactic to avoid forcing their members to take bad votes. And honestly, it goes all the way back to January 5th, the first day of session, when I checked all of the boxes to make sure I could file the resolution to end the peacetime emergency 24 hours in advance. I had it in the hopper. I called the chief clerk to make sure I was doing everything right because I hadn't even officially been sworn in yet. And so as soon as we got sworn in, I just forced the issue and tried to push the resolution to end the peacetime emergency. And the speaker just said, no, you're out of order. We didn't have it 24 hours in advance. And I was like, it's been in the hopper, as they call it, outside of our office for the last 24 hours. But they just said, no, well, we didn't get it. Well, the problem was they didn't empty the hopper. They just didn't go retrieve it from the hopper. But literally, Melissa Hortman's been breaking the rules of the House floor since day one.
This is really incredible. I'm actually surprised to hear this. I'm floored. So you're telling us that democracy at the state level here in Minnesota is literally a scripted affair. They're using small technicalities, small rules to just not hear issues they don't want to hear. It appears that Republicans and Democrats are complicit in this effort. You've got key people that are power brokers deciding how the puppets will move. And this is democracy. We're supposed to believe that the people we vote for can actually affect change inside this system.
Yeah, well, and so it's funny, every single time I would file the motion. So the way you file a motion, because I certainly didn't know when I first got to the Capitol, as I'm sure most people watching don't know, is you email the chief clerk and you say, today I would like to make this motion to do this thing, whatever it is. And every time I would email in my motion to bring forward the resolution, recall it from committee to end the peacetime emergency, every single time I've done it, except for the first day, because I caught everybody by surprise. I mean, even the chief clerk said, well, nobody really ask for any votes on the first day. It's just kind of the pomp and circumstance. And I told him, I don't care what's normal on the first day. We're going to try to vote. We're going to try to vote on ending the peace and emergency. So every time I've done it since the first day, the majority or the minority leader, Kirk Dowd, he also makes the motion. So it's obvious. I mean, it just can't be a coincidence that when I make the motion, it gets to Hortman, who then takes it to Kirk Dowd and says, hey, Mortensen's doing this thing again. Do you want to do your motion? He says yes, because he can't, he has to be the shining star on the hill. That's how he sees himself. His ego is the size of my house. Then, of course, what he gets then, because that's valuable, right? And I don't know what horse trading takes place, but Hortman gives him the opportunity to make his motion first because she knows she's going to get something from it. And I don't know what Dowd's giving up, but I guarantee he's giving up something. And then she'll say, great, okay, we'll bring yours up first. So then he gets his first. The whole, place debates it for an hour or two. And then, of course, it's been going down in flames because every DFLer is voting against it. And when that's all done, then they call on my resolution and my motion. And of course, I say, well, I'll just withdraw mine then, because we already literally just went through it. So, I mean, it is that pre-scripted and predestined. And at the very least, for me, the satisfaction is at least I'm pulling Dowd's strings and I'm making him do things that he wouldn't have otherwise done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's got to be fun. This is a question from our viewers. We had a couple people email in the question. I see some people asking it in the live chat right now. And that is, how many people like you are there in St. Paul, whether you would classify them as, Trumpian Republicans, populists, general rabble rousers, people that aren't going along with the system? How many are there?
I mean, some of the guys in my caucus, they don't mind stirring things up, but for the most part, they aren't really interested. What I have found is the vast majority, the absolute vast majority of people in the Capitol are far more concerned about being friends with the other lawmakers than they are about delivering results for Minnesotans. And I've been begged by people to just get along with these guys and put their feelings first and just kind of put everything else to the wayside and stop calling these people out. And my response to them is, look, if I just focus on the leadership problem in St. Paul and I don't focus and tell people what individual lawmakers are constantly caving into leadership, I'm doing a disservice to their voters. And frankly, I'm providing them political cover by not calling out their actions. So just like Trump today sent out that email saying, hey, Liz Cheney's no good, and he had plenty of colorful words. I feel like that's somewhat of my mission, is to be able to tell the people across the state, here are the good people, here are the bad people, and empower them with the information they need to hold them accountable. And ultimately, what I hope is people challenge them, because the other thing I've come to learn, here's a potential candidate calling me right now. And in fact, she might even be challenging an incumbent. So that's a really fun one. And now everybody, all the incumbents are going to be wondering, oh my gosh, who is it?
Yeah, which one?
A fun tease.
Good.
She's powerful, man. She would kick that guy's butt.
Is this something that you're actively engaged in, trying to find solid primary challengers for an?
Absolutely, yeah. And that is something I'm sure everybody hates to hear, because everybody just wants to be pals. But when you're pals, here's the problem with the team mentality. Because I know everybody's been told this is, it's a team sport, but the reality is it's not. If you dive deep into the guts of the Capitol, it is not a team sport at all. And the problem, if you try to make it a team sport, is if you've got 64 Republicans and one of them's, maybe a really nice person, but in a weak district, and the 63 other ones want to do constitutional carry. Mm-hmm. But if they're really good buddies with that 64th, and that 64th guy or gal in a weak district says, guys, I can't do this. This is too hardcore for my district. I won't get reelected, they'll say. Mm-hmm. And the other rest of the team, they water themselves down to the level of their weakest member. And that is at the root of what is all rotten in St. Paul when you take this team mentality, because you are literally as strong as your weakest link. And there's a lot of weak links down there. So I reject that mentality. And as I look at the ability to get legislation done in the minority, and I'm in the minority of the minority,
yeah,
in the new House Republican caucus, it's hard to see legislative wins. So I've really been focusing, obviously on policy stuff, but I'm trying to provide equal focus to outside the Capitol. And one of those things is absolutely finding good conservative candidates that are willing to really go to the Capitol and fight. Because I think, as much as I see many of the politicians, and I'm not a politician, because I think politicians make politically calculated decisions to win their next campaign. And if I was doing that, I wouldn't be speaking so freely right now.
Right, right.
So their fear is losing elections, and my fear is losing our country. So that's what dictates my behavior: is how do we save our state and our country before it just gets flushed down the toilet? Because I feel like the time is running out. So the answer to the question is very, very, very few people are down there trying to stir stuff up and trying to take a different approach to things, because I think it's obviously broken, and it's time for some different methods.
Yeah, it seems like it's the St. Paul Social Club versus the people of Minnesota.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so well put, because it is literally a social club for these guys. And I attended one caucus meeting under Kurt Dowd's caucus 3 days after the election. And it's funny because they didn't even invite me to this meeting, but they claimed all Republicans were invited, and I caught wind of it from another state rep. So I thought, I'm just going to crash their little meeting here and see what happens. And all these guys are just, touting themselves and bragging about how much they won by. And they are so comfortable, and they think these seats are theirs for all eternity until they decide they don't want it anymore. They're just not willing to mix it up. And some of these guys that have been there 10, 20 years, they've never delivered any conservative victories for the state. So I don't know why anybody would think that they would suddenly start delivering when they never have.
Right. And the sad reality is they can probably maintain it for another 10 or 20 more years if they keep going along to get along, playing the game, greasing the right palms, and slowly losing to the Democrats.
Yeah, what they do now is they act tough, they talk tough, they bring up good conservative amendments to bills. Like we heard all of the good gun legislation from these guys, the establishment guys. They wanted to push forcing votes on stand your ground, forcing votes on constitutional carry when they're in the minority. And they know the Democrats will never vote for it, but that's their mindset now is, okay, we're in the minority. We can pretend as if we're tough and that we can pretend like we really want to get these things done, because they know that'll energize some people and maybe that'll give them a chance at winning the majority back. But then when they get the majority back, they stop forcing votes on those bills. No one brings them up. They just kill them. Right. So it's so fraudulent. And I just feel bad for the people of Minnesota, the conservatives, who just want Republicans to grow a backbone and fight for them. But the vast majority won't do it. And I can tell you the core of the reason is they want to get reelected, and they feel like anything that they do that is controversial, that is really a hardcore conservative position, they think it's going to jeopardize the chances of getting reelected. And they would rather, their natural state is do nothing. That's kind of the sad reality, is do nothing. That way you don't make anybody mad. That way nobody can, work against you very strongly come election time.
It's really pathetic what these people are willing to trade the political future of Minnesota for. And I don't say this with any specific malice, but state reps don't make a lot of money being state reps. It's not like you guys are trading the political future of Minnesota for $10 million. It's right. It's so,
it's so true. And I feel kind of bad when I say this, because although we don't make, we make like 46 grand. And in 5 months worth of work, and then you can put as much time in outside the legislative session as you want. Sure. You could literally put in 100 hours a week right now if you wanted. And I still have a regular full-time job. But no one's getting rich off 46 grand a year. So the only logical conclusion is they get addicted to the prestige of the position. I think they love the opulence of the building, being called a state representative, being called a state senator. I think, and then certainly for leadership, it's much more about the power that they can wield. And they're just as power drunk as Tim Walz, quite honestly. But yeah, so I don't think it's the money so much. And that's what a lot of people think as well. It's just, getting high off the hog and high off the taxpayer. But I think it's how they're treated in their community. They get to work in this big marble building and how it makes them feel inside. And that's where it gets kind of sad, quite honestly, because it seems like it defines them. And this doesn't define me at all. So.
Yeah. Well, they get to be somebody without actually being somebody. They get the office and the title without actually going out and fighting. But how much more could they be if they use the office and the title to do what you're doing and to actually try to make a difference? It would multiply the grandiosity of what they're doing, one would think.
Well, yeah, I agree. In fact, some of the people that have been telling me, "Hey, Eric, you got to back off these guys. You just got to be buddies and call out leadership all you want, but don't call out anybody other than leadership." And I say, guys, first of all, nothing I'm doing is about me. Like, this isn't selfish, and I can't stand when people are like, "Oh, he's just trying to climb the political ladder." And I tell people, look, the people
you're burning the political ladder.
right, the people who know me best know that if I was behaving in a selfish manner, that I'd be probably in Alaska on a homestead, and I would never be seen by another human being like ever again. But I'm doing this to fight for the next generation, because I think it's every generation's obligation to preserve liberty for the next generation. And I'm really scared about what that's going to look like for my kids and our grandkids. And so that's why I'm doing it. I've told these guys, look, I'm new here. I've been here 4 months, but all I know is when I went from having 1,200 likes on my Facebook page in November to 12,000 3 months later. So, people are liking what I'm saying and doing. Clearly, it's a popular thing to do. So instead of being scared of the political blowback of being bold, I think the evidence I've seen would show, no, it's a good thing, and the people will appreciate it. Even if all you're worried about is your political career, I think the data says, well, if that's what you're worried about, then you should be fighting harder.
Yeah, and I can validate that. We got an unusual amount of messages saying that people are happy that you're going to come on the show, writing in questions. They were excited about what you've accomplished in just a couple months. It's been very successful.
That's awesome. And it's always, I get emails from people, and it's so humbling. It's unbelievable, because all I want to do is go in there and treat government the way government has treated me. And that's not in a friendly way. And when I get emails from people saying, "Hey, you've got a ton of support," it always blows me away. And I appreciate it. I don't quite get it. I just feel like I'm, just throwing haymakers everywhere I can and hope I can land something. But people seem to appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're doing your job. You're representing the people. So one thing I wonder is, after months of this scripted discourse and the political maneuvering, what's the tangible outcome? How many bills have passed through? Who's going to be making the final shots or the final calls as we wind this session down?
Yeah, well, so out of the House, I'm going off memory here. In fact, I meant to look this up today because I was just talking to my LA about it earlier today. I know that I've co-sponsored 2 bills that have passed through the House. I think the House has probably passed 8 bills total in 4.5 months. I mean, and I like to do the math. We got 134 state legislators or state representatives, and we've been in session, 16 weeks, and I'm not gonna be able to do the math off the top of my head, but it's fun to go, if everybody spends 25 hours a week on legislative activities, 134 members, 16 weeks,
yeah,
50 or 60,000 hours, and the work we have to show for it's like 8 bills. I mean, it's such if the people, I get government's supposed to move slow, and I don't think we want it to move fast, but boy, if people were getting paid off of productivity in the Capitol, no one would be making any money, because it is, we didn't get the PPP thing across the finish line. The Democrats rolled it into an omnibus bill the way I forecasted they would. So that's been our production in the House. This is 8 bills, and it's kind of fun to know that 2 of them have my name on them. So that's roughly a quarter of the bills that have gone through. And then, going forward, it's going to be the conference committees, but we still don't have targets. So that's what leadership's working on between the governor, the Senate, and the House, is they're trying to figure out, well, what are the spending targets that they can then give to each committee, that they can figure out, well, what can we roll into and squeeze into these targets? And none of the committees even have it. And we've had conference committees for 2 weeks. So the signals we're getting is that this is not going to finish in time on Monday, that there is likely to be a special session required, probably coincidentally, of course, not a coincidence, mid-June, right around the time that the governor's emergency powers will need to be renewed. So they're going to time it to correspond with that. And ultimately, after Monday, I'm convinced it's going to be the Speaker, Melissa Hortman, Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, and Tim Walz. And I would imagine one of the things that Kurt Dowd has gotten in exchange for him selling out is a seat at the table in those discussions. So I think they're going to hash through. In fact, I'm really dying to know if they're going to go to the fishing opener this weekend the way they normally do and all sit in a boat together. And that would not be a good look if they're out there fishing instead of trying to hash this out. But so yeah, it'll come down to those guys. And they're just
have a pretty big boat to all be 6 feet apart on one boat. I don't know how that's going to work.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, it'll be those people. And then literally what they'll do is they'll come back to their caucuses. Hooten will come to the House Democrats, Gazelka back to the Senate Republicans, and they're going to have to say, this is the best deal we could strike, like it or not. And by the way, you have to vote for it. Because, in the Senate, we have such a slim majority. If a couple of them don't vote for it, then it stalls. And that's where it's going to be interesting to see if the peacetime emergency is still going, if the Never Again bill hasn't been signed into law, are these senators really going to buckle and cave into the deal that Gazelka struck? And I hope they don't. I hope they stand strong, because if that emergency is still in effect and the Never Again bill hasn't been signed into law, then there's no guarantee what our future holds. So that's what I've been begging people to do, is reach out to your state senator, tell them, do not agree to anything until the Never Again bill has become law, because that bill will make sure that the governor cannot just unilaterally declare another emergency. So if we settle for ending the peacetime emergency instead of the Never Again bill, the governor could just, July 2nd, say, well, it's another emergency, and put us all through this all over again.
Let's go into this Never Again bill a little bit, because I'm getting the impression that it's something that it's better than nothing, but it's not quite what it could be. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Well, I think it's really good. So I think maybe what's giving you that impression is I talked about two bills, this House File 101 that the establishment put together. That's horrible. It enshrines unilateral emergency powers in our state constitution.
Oh, okay.
My bill, the Never Again bill, does four things that no other legislation in the Capitol so far has, and people could copy it. Anybody could just say, yeah, I like that bill, and I'm going to rip it off and have my own version of it. But no one has done it. So it does four things that is very unique. First, it redefines how an emergency is declared in the state. Mm-hmm. So right now, the governor unilaterally just declares an emergency. And one man, one woman. And we know now, 15 months in, that could be abused and politicized. So what the Never Again bill does, it's House File 2204, is it says, all right, the governor doesn't have that power anymore. Now that power sits with the legislature. And we drafted it to say you need a 2/3 supermajority vote in both houses to declare an emergency. So that really should remove the opportunity to politicize the emergency. And I think if the Never Again bill was law now, we probably would have ended this emergency last June.
Yeah.
I think last March, we probably would have had 2/3 vote in both houses, because we didn't know much. So I think they would have declared an emergency, but by June, it probably would have been gone. And then the Never Again bill says technically it says an emergency lasts 5 days, just like current state statute. And if it needs to be extended up to 30 days, it requires another 2/3 supermajority vote in both houses. Mm-hmm. So a 30-day emergency would require 2 votes at supermajority levels. And then if it needed to be extended again, it'd be another 5-day extension with a 2/3 vote. So it just kind of replicates. So a 60-day emergency would take 4 votes. So it sets the bar high, and it should remove politicizing emergencies. The second thing it does is it takes away the governor's ability to just manufacture law. Like right now in state statute, it says, well, the governor can issue executive orders and make up whatever he wants, essentially, that's the constitutional argument that I've been making, is that no, he shouldn't be able to do that. So that statute's unconstitutional. So it says, no, the legislature creates law. So it strips that state statute out. And if the governor needs a new law to deal with an emergency, then he can come to the legislature. And if it's a real emergency that everybody in the legislature has already agreed by a 2/3 supermajority vote, we'll probably get that new law created quickly. Third thing is it says, if the governor were to violate the provisions of what governs emergencies and emergency powers, it is the governor that goes to jail for 90 days or is fined $1,000 instead of the people across the state that he's been threatening for 15 months. So it holds him accountable. And it also says, well, I guess that's kind of moot, but when we take away the governor's ability to create law, we also stripped out the part that says his executive orders have the full effect of law. So that also goes out. And then the fourth thing it does, which is frankly unnecessary, or should be unnecessary, because I think of our founding fathers were sitting here watching this, and if they were to hear what I was about to say, they would say, we covered that 250 years ago in the Bill of Rights. But the fourth thing is we included a Citizens' Bill of Rights that says, as a reminder, even during emergency, the state government does not get to trample on your rights to work, your rights to travel, your rights to get medical attention, your right to practice religion. So just to make sure that the courts are reminded, since I think our courts need a reminder, the way they've been rejecting court cases for the last 14 months, that you don't get to trample on our rights just because there's an emergency.
Absolutely. Yeah, I confused 101 and the Never Again bill. I understand now. My apologies for confusing those. One thing I want to circle back to is you said that the fight is happening outside the legislature and that there's a lot of work to be done outside St. Paul, outside the ivory towers. One of the main focuses of this show is telling people how they can get involved, how they can affect change on the local individual level. Could you speak to that a little bit more and understand, or help our viewers understand how they can fight?
Yeah. So there's so many ways, and you're only frankly limited by your creativity. In fact, I had a supporter send me a picture of a yard sign that they put together. They don't live in they live in another district, but they put this yard sign together, and they put it in the yard of their state representative, and it has pictures of rhinos, and it says like something like "Sign on to the Never Again bill, or I'll primary you." Like, that's pretty effective, because the word primary is the dirtiest, not dirtiest, the most feared word in the state capitol. They know if they hear that word primary, then they will start paying a lot more attention to what their voters want. So, I mean, literally, you're limited by your creativity, but I'll give you some examples. There's a lot of people who want to get election integrity taken care of. Well, as much as I would love to get it done in the legislature, the Democrats will not move, and we could force a vote on it, and we have every single day, every single minute, and it won't go anywhere. I hate to say it, but that's the reality. So what I've been telling people is it's up to the people, quite honestly, at this point. So you become an election judge, be a polling watcher, get to know the people in your county that oversee elections. There's a lot less chance or likelihood that they're going to do something corrupt. So that's one thing. Start signing up for that, because Republicans typically, we don't have a very good turnout when it comes to election judges and poll watching. So that's a huge thing. You could latch on to an issue, say the Never Again bill. I was just the person who just called, actually. They're going to be doing some meetups and just talking to people about why this bill is important and why they should hold their senators accountable. You could run for office. I mean, that is the big thing. If you want to run, if you know somebody who wants to run, even if you've just had, you've thought about doing it, but it seems overwhelming, I'd love to talk to you, because I can at least paint the picture of what it looks like, and probably make you feel like this isn't really all that difficult. I think people, when they think about running for office, they think it's like running for the president, and there's going to be commercials against them, and it's going to be horrible. And it's running for state house or state senate isn't that bad at all. So I'd love to talk to people about that if they want to run, because I'm sure anybody watching this is probably 10 times more courage in their guts than the vast majority of legislators in St. Paul. So that's a huge way. And then I like to tell people, although this isn't maybe the most popular message, I tell people don't donate towards parties. When you just dump your money into a big party bucket, you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I would tell people, find a candidate that you believe in and you want to help, and donate to candidates. That's a much more effective way, and the candidates are truly appreciative. The parties, I really worry about what happens with that money. That definitely goes to helping unprincipled candidates. But I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's so many things you could do. At election time, go out door knocking for people, lip dropping, making phone calls. But I would encourage people right now to find a group. If you haven't found one already, start attending their meetings. I think there's 125 groups that I'm hearing all around the state. It's like Tea Party 2.0 right now. Find a group, get involved, and odds are the group is probably not action oriented, because I think a lot of these groups kind of turn into like the legislature. They're like social clubs. Challenge that group that you find to actually be active and do things, make a difference. And if you don't know how to do it, please call me. I'm happy to talk to you.
Absolutely. And that's what's so critical, is taking these groups from being social clubs and echo chambers to being something that actually has tangible outcomes in the real world.
And I got to throw this at you, because I've never heard a politician say this. And I guess I need to say this is another reason that I'm not a politician. What I want the people across the state to be is the most effective political activists they can possibly be, and to hold their elected officials accountable. That is my deep down desire, because I think I can't do this stuff alone. We need people all around the state to get active and get involved, because nobody's coming, right? There's no savior that's going to be descending upon the heavens to just say, okay, all these things are better now. It's up to you. And that doesn't mean complaining on Facebook. It means actually getting off the couch and doing things.
Right. What's that saying? Nobody's coming. It's up to us. It's very simple and very true. Very true. One of the last questions I have for you here is, what does this process of finding and vetting primary candidates look like? Is there some official infrastructure you guys are using, or is it guerrilla warfare?
Yeah. Boy, I feel like I'm giving away secrets, but I don't think there is a secret. If there is, I don't have it. I'm sure some of the establishment guys are on the edge of their seat right now to hear what I have to say.
They're taking notes. They've got the yellow pad out.
Yeah, they're gonna be disappointed with my answer. My process, and it may be completely ineffective. I don't know. We'll see. But I talked to 3 potential candidates yesterday. I can tell you that. All these events going on, you got 125 groups all across the state. They're having meetups, they're talking, they're energizing people. And then I think where they're failing, though, is probably activating them. But I want to go to these things. So invite me, please. Let me know. I'll come if I can. So my process is I go to as many as I can. And I tell people, like, this is what we need. We need people to challenge these incumbents that are comfortable and unwilling to fight for results. And if I can get one potential candidate out of each one of these meetups, I think that is a monstrous win. And even if they decide they don't want to run, maybe they want to do something else, that's fine. But that's my process. Is they come up to me after the meeting, more than likely. This is what happened so far. And I'll just chat with them and see how serious they are, and kind of what inspires them. Who are their, say, Congress people that they really like? What kind of books have they read? See if they're on the same ideology as me, frankly, and kind of see what's their background. When have they stood up to authority? Like a guy I talked to the other night, he came out of the military and he said, look, in the military, I banged my head against the wall as many times as it took to tear down that wall. And I was like, well, that's what you need at the Capitol, because it's the same fight over and over and over. It's kind of like losing weight. You don't go work out one day and say, there, I'm in the best shape of my life. You got to keep doing it and keep doing it to find the results.
Absolutely. And this seems to be what establishment politicians fear the most, is grassroots activism, personal relationships, community bonds, because they can't monitor it, they can't track it, they can't regulate it, and it's going to happen no matter what they do.
Yeah, and what they try to do then is, when they see it, is they just they try to dismiss me. They say, well, he's ineffective, he's never done anything. And I think the best response I can possibly have to that is, if I was so ineffective and so irrelevant, why is the governor sending out fundraising emails referencing my name? Like, if I wasn't doing anything meaningful, the governor wouldn't waste a single second of his time typing my name into his fundraising email. So
why do you have your name on more bills right now than anybody?
Yeah, I mean, but people won't dig, right? Or they're not likely to dig. If someone like their state rep says, oh, don't listen to that guy, he's not a team player, he doesn't get along with us. And then people come back to me, and it can be difficult when they say, hey, look, my state rep says you're lying. So are you lying, or is he lying?
Right.
And I just tell them, well, who has reasons to lie? Ask yourself that. And I think you'll know who's actually being dishonest here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it seems like throughout this entire interview, one consistent thread has been you, Representative Mortensen, versus the establishment power brokers, and you sticking up for the people. And you've been supplying us with ways that people can get involved in this fight against institutional power in St. Paul. That's very important. We really appreciate you coming on to speak about all this. Any parting shots that you want to leave us with?
Oh, oh, the way you tee it up, there's so many shots I'd love to take, but
Yeah.
I think the big important thing is get involved. It's easy to sit and complain, and I find myself getting into the doldrums from time to time, but I fear our time is running out, so you've got to get involved. If you don't know what to do, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to anybody who's serious about getting off the couch and being effective and being an effective political activist.
Absolutely. How can people get in touch if that's what they want to do?
I'd say the best way is probably email me at my official rep page, and that is my email is rep.eric with a K, no C, .mortensen, and it's SEN at the end. So rep.eric.mortensen@house.mn. Email me there, and that's probably the best place because I have some staff in my LA will help get the grips on all these emails that come flow in, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, if you're just tuning in or you didn't catch the entire interview, I really encourage you to go back and watch the replay. Representative Mortensen illuminated how a lot of what you see in these Zoom calls where legislators are meeting in St. Paul is literally scripted. Power is being brokered through a few key individuals. He laid out a very disturbing picture of what the situation is there at our state capitol. And he also explained how he's trying to fight it. And we appreciate that very much. Representative Mortensen, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And to our